If I were to ask you what Clayface is, most people would assume that he's this monstrous clay thing that works for people like the Joker, or he's this silly little creature that acts way too flamboyant.
Please, James Gunn, sit on me.
But everything has changed. This is thanks to the film Clayface coming out in October, as this reminds people that his character is rooted in horror, corruption, and the overarching message of what does it mean to be a star? The construction of DC's Clayface. Today I want to talk all about Clayface and its past iterations and how this evolves into what I think is the best chance and the best depiction of Clayface going forward with the film. From director James Watkins, coming off the English remake of Speaking of Evil, the hit series McMafia, and the critically acclaimed episode of Black Mirror Shut Up and Dance, where this goes into the moral complex of fucked up men, and which makes him perfect for the man made of clay. The mind-boggling season 3 episode of Black Mirror goes into this directly, pulling back on the internet issues of privacy, trolls, and the idea of securing freedom being not what you expected. Obviously, in the instance of this episode, you aren't supposed to know that he's the bad guy until the end, which is kind of fitting for Clayface as a character. But it's also the episode with exit music by Radiohead, so it's a certified banger, really. This writing of Clayface was originally by Mike Flanagan, who we'll get to in just a moment, but also Hossein Amini, who wrote McMafia alongside James, but more importantly wrote Drive in 2011, starring internet famous man, me. I am literally Ryan Gosling. Do you see the resemblance? 1 to 1. You're literally me. Circling back to Mike, he is a titan in the horror sphere as he works closely with Stephen King on movies like Dog to Sleep and The Life of Chuck, but also the terrifying Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House. This combination of crew left us in hands to really understand the horror, but also its care for male-centric characters. But this begs the question, why Clayface? Well, okay, another question. Second question. Why did Mike pitch this out of anything to DC? Well, let's go back to 2021. Mike pitched this film to DC EU president at the time, Walter Amala, and he was like, not right now, champ. We have Black Adam to make. Mike moved on, he made The Life of Chuck, but this thing kept on itching at him. Clayface was this idea that he couldn't get out of his head. So 1 year later, WB gives the keys to James Gunn and Peter Safran, in which they go to Matt Reeves and say, make us more money. Then another year goes by, and in March 2023, Flanagan and his production team pitch this film to DC, and it's a success. They like it, they put it on the slate, and they say that it's actually going to be a tale of a tragic hero rather than a villain. Then some time passes, and Mike Flanagan's doing press for Life of Chuck, and I get this on my feed.
I would love to know if your script was at all inspired by Clayface's backstory in Batman the Animated Series.
Of course it was. I mean, that is the perfect, feet of clay. Ron Perlman, is kind of, to me, that's it.
Before we get to the details of it all, I want to turn back the clock to the many faces of clay and how this redefined everything to the BTAS version of Matt Hagen and now the movie version coming out in October. Basil Karlo. Starting at the start, we have the actor turned serial killer. In comics like Batman One Bad Day, The Dark Knight 22.3, Clayface number 1, and his original appearance Detective Comics number 40, The Murders of Clayface. Basil Karlo is an actor who is short-tempered and wants to be center stage for absolutely everything, this being either the man of clay or the man of the stage. Everyone talks about how Batman One Bad Day does it, which I do agree, but really to me, it's shown in its fullest in Clayface number 1, where he wants to become a part of the secret society. This comic gives more insight into how Basil's bashful mind tries to connect with people who see him for who he really is. It's just a nice story in how he thought he was more than the muscle. Going back to his first appearance, however, in The Murders of Clayface, we see that Basil has been replaced by a younger, more upcoming actor, and where this and the overall negativity of stature in the public perception of himself sparks up the Clayface within him. Basil Karlo did not start as the meat of clay, but rather a guy with an ugly face and a lust for murder. This sucker rounds more than you think. This is also seen in the modern interpretation of the character in Batman One Bad Day, where after being denied the part in the movie, he works his way up on the movie ladder, killing everyone in the cycle to become the main stage. Internally, it's about him anticipating it to be his vision, his character, his motivations, his everything. He needs to be the center focus, and if anyone is taking it from him, they die. The importance of what people take out of the rather simplistic comics is that his motivations are always tied to the idea of public perception and the likability, in which we see later in Feet of Clay with Matt Hagen. Let's be honest here, shall we? The BTAS episode, he's more Basil than Matt, yet there's some still importance to his original comic storylines, and this is his physical appearance, the clay part of the character. Matt Hagen is the first to have the clay within the face. His origin starts with a treasure hunt gone wrong, as he touches a strange pool in which he turns into a clay creature who is unstoppable and is unable to take physical damage. I mean, he literally can't die. Doing no harm to them, he turns to a life of crime in which he turns into many, many animals of the vast kingdom, this being a snake, a lion, and a part lion dinosaur. Why the horn? Oh, thank you, Robin. Unicorn. I get it now. The shapeshift is the second importance of the character, as it's now been refined to either really hammers or mallets, in which is shown in the Clayface teaser itself. Preston Payne. I told you it would circle back. Oh, let me explain. Preston Payne was a completely different iteration of the Clayface name and was not a man made of clay. Well, technically he's made of clay, he has Matt Hagen's blood inside of him, but alas. Preston is made of clay, but he wears a suit similar to Mr. Freeze. As being born with physical deformity, he stole that blood and became hot shit for a minute, but because it's clay, his face melts, which in turn is the reason for the suit. This, for some reason, also makes him able to kill anyone he touches, being so totally different from the others as they create weapons or structures. This version of Clayface is the subversion. He destroys rather than creates. Furthermore, Preston has his love for anything that he cannot destroy, so in turn he finds a mannequin, names it Helena, and falls in love with it. I don't know what else you expect for a man that crazy. This version is so different from the others that it's quite hard to pinpoint exactly where it goes into the overarching list of things that he needs to bring to the table, but really it's the tragicness inside of him, the tragedy of what it means to be a Clayface. It reminds me a lot of the Sympathy of Monsters, which BTAS achieved a lot in its runtime with its villains. On top of this, in the comic book, we get this sense of something being wrong for Preston. He is so scared for his life that his words of sorrow have him attacking Batman, not for a monstrous reason at first. His internal dialogue exposes the real thoughts of Preston, being rude to himself, being down on himself, and actually just thinking it as self-defense. These factors reinforce this heavily, and as I'm not saying he is a good person, but rather as readers we can read between the lines, and we see the messaging of loneliness and the effects of harassment due to differences of their own. Also backed up by Batman himself, calling him a tragic figure at the end of the issue. Okay, before we move on, I want to point out something. Batman saved the day by unplugging Preston's machine that would make him turn back to normal. Then this dude burns the Max Museum and kills Helena. I see how it is, Batman, you sleazy fucker. But wait, what's this? There's no body. Preston cannot be found. This must mean that he's alive. Sandra Fuller is the fourth Clayface, a rather simplistic one if you ask me, being part of the Outsiders in July of 1987 of issues 21. In this story, Clayface 4 repopularizes the idea of shapeshifting as she becomes the Looker, a mind reader who works alongside the Outsiders. This bit of being her doesn't last long as she gets captured pretty early on in the issue, as that's it for her first appearance, which is a shame because her ability to shapeshift is now an iconic staple of the powers within the Clayface identity. But she does get more of a spotlight in the Mud Pack. Good name, guys. You really seem like a modern day boy band. The most predominant is in Sandra as she gets reintroduced in this issue, as she now has a motivation beyond being a lackey. She now wants to move on from the past Clayfaces and be her own identity. We cut to a prison and we see Preston watching TV with Helena. He saved his wife from a fire and now watches TV with her. With this storyline, it retells a lot of the previous issues with a new splash of ink, or rather a simpler streamlining, of which I respect from a writer's standpoint. We didn't really have the internet back then, or an app that told us what to read, so it's quite nice to have everything into one cohesive place. Oh yes, back to the Mud Pack. Now this is throughout Detective Comics number 604 and 607. Preston snaps at the press and at Batman, breaking out to seek revenge, but he gets captured by Sandra, who, dun dun dun, is working for Basil Karlo, the first Clayface. Forming the Mud Pack once and for all, they seek to have the most fucked up game of charades you've ever seen in your... Oh, no, that's not it. Basil has something up his sleeve. In the next issue, Preston wakes up and immediately simps over Sandra as he is now infatuated with her. Sandra pretends to be Batman, robbing banks and destroying the good credit that he has created over the years, as then we get to issues 606. We see Sandra pretend to be Jason Todd. This moment is quite shocking and once again shows you more of Sandra's character, using those around her to fuck up people and their minds. This was fresh on the mindset of readers and is even more frightening in retrospect. Side note, this is done again in Batman Hush with another Clayface, but the less we talk about that one, the better. All of this shared pain is what makes the Clayfaces so interesting to me, as they can attach themselves to those around them and seek out the hardships of being different, being a person of pain, if you will. Okay, you remember earlier about the charades thing? Well, Basil now betrays the group, leaving Preston and Sandra to rekindle this strange attachment to one another, this time in their true form, beyond an exoskeleton or someone else. Embracing one another, which is really sweet. I guess Helena should go back to the burning building. Ending on issue 607, we see the full picture of Basil's plan. It was not to win charades, but actually to become the ultimate Clayface. A genuine man made of clay, which honestly reading, I can understand why he wants to do this, but how many times it's backfired or failed? It's a stupid plan. But to completely contradict myself, however, I do like this on a villainous note. This man of the past who has had 3 versions of him shine in many, many ways of Batman and others with the powers of touch of Preston, the malleability of Sandra, and I guess the physical appearance of Matt. This is his last chance of becoming a real threat. My one complaint of these comic books, as Matt is just sidelined to be this little guy, this little fucking goober in the corner, is a shame. I understand that there's a lot going on, but if you don't use all of them properly, it's not really all 4 of the Clayfaces. Basil defeating Batman reminds us how strived he is for public affection. He must become the ultimate Clayface, someone who likes the idea of being center stage. Oh wait, what's this? Batman picks up a chair and throws it at him, defeating him once and for all, as we pan out to see Clayface 3 and 4 fully embracing each other and escaping. Overall, the thematic issue in Sandra and Preston are beyond the cold, murderous intentions. It's the idea of finding someone who likes you for you and accepts you for who you are. This is kind of sweet if you don't think about the amount of dead bodies that they have combined. Cassius Claything Payne. Now, this is where I want to speedrun. As much as I want to talk about these characters, they don't have anything too important to them, except from one, and that being Cassius Claything. In January of 1998, in Batman 550, we get the new Claything, and this time he is being the child of Clayface 3 and 4, where his motivations are simply come from, I want mummy, I want daddy, goo goo gaga, gimme my milk, in which we see him be this infant-like creature who was taken away from his parents at the wrong age. There's nothing much to this issue except from the amazing art panels that have mud kind of surrounding them, which is a lovely thematic issue to what Clayface is. Similar to the Mud Pack, we can see that this Clayface is actually the idea of accepting someone for who you are and being with people who truly get you. There are a few other Clayfaces, but let's move on to the real reason why the Clayface movie was made in the first place. Feet of Clay, airing on September 8th and 9th in 1992 on the Fox Kids network, where usually Batman and sometimes Robin stumble upon a task they must complete. This being either a personal dilemma for Bruce Wayne or actually an external one like a villain plotting a scheme. Yet above all this, Batman is a vessel into the many rogues taking a sympathetic approach towards its audience in characters like Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, or today's subject, Clayface. With the 2-part arc called Feet of Clay, we see the downfall of actor Matt Hagen as the episode starts with him using the clay substance called Renew You to clean up his disfigurement, but due to this partnership with 1 acting skills and 2 the clay, he does jobs for mob boss Daggett. Matt's whole motivation is trying to be someone that he used to know. Shaping himself out to be Bruce Wayne for the job, Batman arrives just a little bit too late to find Fox on the floor unaware of everything going on and unaware of the secret identities of both Bruce being Matt and Batman being Bruce. Then we get introduced to the most important side character of the story, Teddy. Now Teddy is the stand-in for Matt Hagen as an actor, but is also a personal friend, and in my opinion, I believe that Teddy is gay. Now before you click off screaming woke nonsense, there is more than just the usual shipping standards that other characters have in the past. Expanding beyond the episodes, Matt's entire character is based off 2 classic Hollywood stars. The first being Lon Chaney, who is considered the man with 1,000 faces and applied this makeup himself. Another is Montgomery Clift. He was a popular 1950 actor but suffered a severe car accident, ruining the left side of his face, and in this accident he stumbled upon many addictions to alcohol and drugs. And another identification towards Matt and Teddy's queerness is actually how Montgomery himself was gay. Oh yeah, and the director of Feet of Clay Part 2, Kevin, actually confirmed that he was his boyfriend during a podcast.
Oh, his boyfriend? Yeah. His boyfriend. And that was intentionally a gay relationship too.
In this episode itself, it's not stated that they are boyfriends or even more than close friends, but due to a little thing called subtle storytelling, we can see that Teddy actually cares for Matt more than you think. This being physical affection, a care for Matt's Renew You addiction, but also the closeness for seeing Matt for who he really is. This personally gives a lot of recognition towards the 90s HIV and AIDS tragedy, where we see a lot of people perceive one another. The media tries to portray it one way, but personally you know it's not. This can actually be wrapped on Matt as well, as Teddy is his stand-in, someone who's not ashamed for who Matt really is. He has ginger hair and wears brighter colours such as pink, making it a really old-fashioned statement of feminine colours and difference. In conclusion to Matt and Teddy, they are mirrors, being in how the public and private lives of queer people were and still are perceived in politics and media. Matt himself wallows in this accident with the physical newspapers in his trailer, letting him solely define his moment as that one accident, whereas Teddy does not care. He is free-spirited and sees the good within Matt. However, the substance is running out, so he tries to sneak in and steal some for himself. After being caught, he gets poured the liquid right into his mouth/face, turning him into the man made of clay. This character of Matt Hagen in this series is not really Matt, as he is the aforementioned sea diver turned criminal. In this, he is still a criminal, which takes elements or molds everything from the previous Clayfaces. First is in the rage and attention seeking from Basil Carlo, the disfigurement and acceptance from Preston, but also the clay mold within Matt. More importantly, he has the shape-shifting abilities from Sandra, which, yes, Matt does do, but he turns into a bird, whereas Sandra turns into real humans, so it's going to go to her. After being put in his car, Teddy finds him in an alley. Seeing his monstrous figure for the first time, Teddy does not really care about this and just wants to support him like the best boyfriend ever. In this sequence, we really see their connection towards one another. Teddy throws out the idea of giving up. Matt has made a comeback before, he can do it again, which is glaring over the outer shell made of clay. Teddy still cares for Matt, even if he's broken down at his most vulnerable or even at his rock bottom, which then Matt snaps back. But instead of arguing, Teddy reminds him that he did his best movies after the accident. Giving Matt this one last bit of hope, he turns into the characters he's played before, giving Teddy such a face of pure joy. Running the lines of,
It doesn't have to be over. We can go on.
these simple words of "we can go on" are not only a reference to him being the stand-in, but their relationship and the secret to one another. Seeing Matt change, Teddy goes close to him, holding his arm, the first proper instance of some romantic feelings, but this rising tension of acceptance is cut short. He turns back into Clayface and lashes out at Teddy. This one scene is the smoking gun to my acceptance and a retelling of the queerness in both characters. The affection snowballs into how queer representation cannot be shown at its fullest, illustrating this mirror of queer perception. This lashing out makes Matt break down crying, stating that he is not even a man, and even after this, Teddy still supports him, giving him a ride to the hospital and being oddly calm about being an accomplice to murder. Matt's plan is to essentially kill Daggett for revenge. Simple Batman stuff, really. This is where Batman and Clayface meet for the first time. As this introduction, we can see Clayface's molecules change, with both of them smashing down with a hammer, creating sharp claws, but also changing to match Batman's ears and eyes. Freaky stuff, I will say. By jumping off the building, Matt escapes to find himself at a TV, scheming a plan to intercept Gotham Insider to kill Daggett once and for all. Another tidbit is that we see Teddy bringing him some dinner. By simply caring for Matt, he lashes out at him one more time, this time angrier than ever as he strikes out the worst thing you could say to someone.
And I don't need you.
As he storms off, politely opens and closes the door. Batman finds Renew and connects the dots. Batman comes in his disguise, which is just like a janitor uniform, but if we actually pause for a second, what is that? I can see his gloves and face mask. I mean, like, it's better than Bruce Wayne, I guess. By going into the taping room, he slowly turns the monitors to Matt's old films, giving us some amazing visual storytelling later on. Going back to the stage, a questionnaire goes a little sideways, with one woman pulling out all the truth behind Renew as revealing herself to be Clayface. At this point in the video, I need to mention Ron Perlman's portrayal of Clayface, as this is definitely the standout for these two episodes. His rage and rhythm of wordings is like anything we've ever seen on the show, and the final 10 minutes really illustrates that even more, as his dramatic acting gets shown in all different kind of ways. The sad nature of realizing it's too late for him, declaring himself as Clayface as he gets pushed into the taping room. Seeing himself on the monitors, it rushes him back to better times. Seeing himself, he shapeshifts into his past characters as the beautiful animation and amazing melancholic score plays him out. The combination is then rammed into 12th gear when Batman attempts to calm him down.
Let me help you find a cure.
Matt's response is,
God, make him stop haunting me.
by changing into the many roles, he exhausts and electrocutes himself, falling to the ground, staying,
You know what I'd have given for a death scene like this?
clearly showing that all on his mind was the impact of his career, not the personal tragedy that is involved, but rather, what will this do for the public perception of the character? As his face fades away into a mold of clay, we pan out. We cut to see Teddy saying goodbye at the hospital as it's revealed this clay doesn't get affected by electricity, meaning that this was all acting, and all an elaborate plan to escape. On April 22nd, 2026, the first Clayface teaser is come out to an overall positive reaction, as its clear introduction towards a horror thriller is a good direction, as it unreveals Matt's horrifying descent from being the man in center stage to the man that no one can look at. Starring Tom Rhys-Harris, we get the idea of a revenge tale, but also the themes of identity, stardom, and humanity, as it navigates the underbelly of scientific discovery. With how it looks and goes into my expectations of horror, I will say that it looks pretty good, and it's not pulling any punches, yet there are still a few things that I'm not too sure about. Let's get the obvious out of the way. We do not see Batman in this teaser, and we're most likely not going to get him in the film, and I think this is a good thing. I understand that Batman is the most popular character, but I don't want this to be a prequel to that film. I want this to be more of a Joker situation, and we can see things that we've never seen before. It's only a teaser, so I can understand that this thing changes in an instant, and we get Batman in the last 10 minutes destroying Matt Hagen's career. To kind of backtrack within the trailer, we can see him getting attacked. Now, I cannot show you anything, but I think you can understand what I'm getting at. This revenge throughout the trailer is seen more of a defensive counterattack to his disfigurement, but also within set photos and leaks, we can see that this is going to be early on in the film due to his rise in fame or a personal tragedy rather than the downfall of his career, and his movie star days are after the fact. Moving on to the stuff I'm really happy about, that is the horror and thriller aspects. The body/face moldings are really well done. The fact that it's actively pulsing, the shots of it looking really alive, really sells how active this goo is. Later on in the teaser, we see him grow, or rather expand his hand to this iconic flare-like weapon, but also his body being all smushed on in the bathtub. Some really good practicality, as I hope we see more. Another is the tagline "Look fear in the face," which I think could mean a couple of things. First is the intentional struggle of acting and star power. A lot of people are now aware of the trials and tribulations being that famous and having to go out in public. It's a rather tragic tale of public perception. Or on a more obvious level, this could mean people seeing Matt's true form, looking into the eyes of a Clayface, which in turn is Matt's internal fear for people seeing who he truly is. As we assume he's consented to the procedure, but didn't realise that there are side effects or consequences to his actions. It's not all sunshine and rainbows for me, however, as there are a few things that I'm rather mixed on. The first is the connection to Naomi's Caitlyn Cole, which shows them holding hands in quite a tender setting, which either implies that they have a relationship or a romantic subplot throughout the narrative, which is completely fine. There is no wrongdoings for this. I do have one note, but I would have preferred if this was a queer relationship. Not necessarily with Teddy, but because of what this could mean for the modern era of Clayface. Having this embodiment of Clay and making yourself to be someone you are not is an interesting parallel to queer representation and making it an allegory. Another is the way that he gets his powers. The trailer makes out to be due to the attack towards his face. He undertakes an experiment which seems to be more of a bacteria than like a smudgy clay, which leaves me kind of indifferent, as if it serves the story and the modern interpretation of the character, I'm all for it. But due to the original version being either a supernatural ordeal, it makes sense to ground it into a reality for essentially to sell the horror aspect even more, leaving the super and keeping it natural. To include my thoughts, by using all the past iterations of Clayface, you must have the rageful spotlight of Basil, the deep tragic nature of being unstoppable within Matt, the desire to be loved and respected with Preston, and the ability to become someone else like Sandra. By using these full elements, this is what Clayface is, and not the muscle that is so easily described to him. But what did you think of this? Did you genuinely think this was a good direction for the character, or do you wish that Batman was involved in some way? I'm genuinely curious, please let me know in the comments. Anyways, I'll see you next time.